The Russians have significantly modernized and expanded the Belbek airfield in Crimea, which was recently hit by airstrikes. Anatoly Krapchinsky, a former Air Force officer and now Deputy General Director of a company producing electronic warfare equipment, spoke about this on air at Radio NV. That's why it's a logistics hub for the Russian Federation. In general, Crimea is a large military base, so there are enough jobs for our military to work there. The same radar systems that allow them to partially scan our capabilities. Recently, there was information and I had to study some satellite images regarding the Kerch airfield. The ability to launch attack UAVs of the Shahed type is being developed there. That's why there is a lot of work there, Krapchinsky said. At the same time, the expert noted that recently, the occupiers have been actively developing and strengthening their capabilities at frontline airfields. According to the expert, we are talking about a section 300 kilometers from the front line. He is actively building hangars to protect his aircraft. Therefore, we also need to move and accelerate in scaling our capabilities for the production of cruise and ballistic missiles. Because this is the next task, to strike these objects precisely, to make it impossible to operate them. If the enemy continues to develop such objects, then we understand that the number of weapons that we have will not be enough to make significant strikes. Krapchinsky added, in such a situation, Ukraine is expected to launch more strikes on Russian military airfields in Crimea. Earlier, the Ukrainian government has issued a report entitled Militarization of the Temporarily Occupied Territory of Crimea by the Russian Federation. It describes the units of the Air Force and Air Defense of the Russian Federation in the Crimea Peninsula and highlights the increase in aviation troops at the bases in that territory. Currently, the Russian Air Force and Navy bases with air and air defense troops are the next: Belbek Air Base, 38th Fighter Aviation Regiment, 27th Mixed Aviation Division; Gvardiskoy Air Base, 37th Mixed Aviation Regiment, 27th Mixed Aviation Division; Jankoy Air Base, 39th Helicopter Regiment, 27th Mixed Aviation Division; Kacha Air Base, 318th Navy Aviation Regiment; Kirovsko Air Base, 929th Air Force Training Center; Saki, 43rd Navy Aviation Regiment.
Defense intelligence of Ukraine has obtained classified information on the Russian nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine K-555 Nyaz Pozharsky, part of the 955A Boryai class. The Defense Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense reported the breach on its official website. According to the Defense Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense, Ukrainian intelligence acquired a significant volume of data, including personal information. The DAU has at its disposal names of the submarine's crew, including data on positions, qualifications, and level of their fit, combat instructions for the crew, ship's combat diagram, diagrams of survivability systems, and the crew's organizational structure, crew instructions in cabins and cockpits, instructions for transferring wounded and cargo, procedures for towing, and other job descriptions. Engineering documentation, including a report on the study of a deformed radio buoy, indicating the members of the commission and the companies that participated in the study. The intelligence also got extracts from the ship's schedule book, which regulates the daily combat and routine operation of the ship. As explained by the DAU, Project 955A Boryai submarines are one of the key elements of the Kremlin's so-called nuclear triad. These submarines have 16 launch silos for our 30 Bulava, 30 intercontinental ballistic missiles, each of which can carry up to 10 warheads. The strategic submarine Nyaz Pozharsky became part of the 31st Submarine Division of the Northern Fleet of the Russian Navy only on July 24, 2025. The submarine's permanent home base is Gadzhievo, Murmansk region. The Nyaz Pozharsky was personally accepted for combat duty by Russian President Vladimir Putin. The information obtained by the intelligence officers allows us to identify the features and technical limitations of not only the Nyaz Pozharsky but also other submarines of the 955A project, which are critical to maintaining the imperial myth of the aggressor state of Russia, the DAU added.
Raytheon, the American defense giant, has secured a massive contract worth up to $3.5 billion to manufacture AIM-120 AMRAAM air-to-air missiles for both the US and international clients, including Ukraine. The contract, announced on July the 31st, marks a significant step in strengthening Ukraine's air defense capabilities amid ongoing defense challenges posed by the Russian invasion. The AIM-120 AMRAAM, or Advanced Medium-Range Air-to-Air Missile, is a critical missile for modern fighter jets, including the F-16s that are now being used extensively by Ukraine to counter Russian missile and drone attacks. The U.S. Department of Defense reported on their website. Raytheon's contract includes missile deliveries to several countries, with Ukraine and the U.S. set to receive significant portions. Other nations benefiting from this deal include Denmark, Belgium, Japan, the Netherlands, Canada, Finland, Germany, Hungary, Spain, Poland, Sweden, Taiwan, Lithuania, the United Kingdom, Australia, Switzerland, Israel, and Kuwait. The deliveries are expected to be completed by the third quarter of the U.S. fiscal year 2031. The contract follows an earlier agreement in September of the previous year, which saw the U.S. Department of Defense awarding Raytheon nearly $1.2 billion to supply AMRAAM missiles to Ukraine and other allied nations. These missiles are also integral to the NASAMS, or National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System, that Ukraine uses to defend its airspace. In addition to fighter jets, the AIM-120 is deployed as a primary missile for NASAMS systems, enhancing both the range and accuracy of Ukraine's air defense network. Raytheon recently doubled its production of AIM-120 missiles, increasing its annual output to 1,200 missiles across various modifications, thus accelerating the fulfillment of this contract. The U.S. Department of Defense states, the U.S. State Department also recently approved a sale of 400 AIM-120D3 AMRAAM missiles to Poland, further indicating the growing demand for these advanced defense systems. Previously, it was also reported that the European missile manufacturer MBDA has accelerated production of its Aster family of surface-to-air missiles, reaching a 5-fold increase in output for 2025 compared to earlier projections. Thus, Ukrainian F-16 aircraft will be able to destroy Russian targets more accurately. The number of such targets is also expected to increase significantly.